Hi, I'm Nicole and this is Dusty Book Sniffers, and today we're here for Friday Classics and we're going to be talking about Jane Eyre. So let's get started. Good morning, good evening everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while I prattle on about the books that I have read. And oh my goodness, have I read a book. Today, as I said, is Friday Classics, so I'm talking all things Jane Eyre, and oh my god, I absolutely love this. Now, I'm going to say something here that most people aren't going to like. I'm not a fan of Jane Austen, and I think Jane Austen put me off from reading some of the classics as well, because I just thought that they were all drivel. Oh my god, how wrong was I? So basically, Jane Eyre is the first one that I've read from the Bronte sisters. I'm also in the midst of reading Wuthering Heights, and I'm about to start Villette by Charlotte Bronte as well. So Wuthering Heights is by Emily. And so I've got 4 books that I'm going to be reading over the last one, the name is escaping me, but anyway, I got a box set from Amazon, and it had those books in it, and I am doing a group read with Maria from Read Fine Books, because we seem to read a lot of the same books. So we've been buddy reading, group reading these, and so if you have thought about reading the classics and don't know where to start, come over to either my Discord or Maria's, and that way you will be able to dive in to the wind has just really picked up all of a sudden. It has been dead still most of the day, and then as soon as I go to record, it starts getting windy. Hopefully you're not picking up too much of that wind. All right, so as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by the wind. Basically, we have been doing the Bronte sisters over in Maria's Discord, which is Read Fine Books. I will link all her details down below. By all means, come and join us. We've got some amazing books coming up in the near future where we will be talking all things classics and doing some deep dives and all that sort of stuff. And I'm super excited to be working alongside Maria. She's lovely. She's very knowledgeable. We don't always agree. Some books she likes, some books I don't. So it's good because we have that contrast of each other's opinions and everything. But we're here to talk about Jane Eyre, which we read I'm pretty late reviewing this because it actually took me a little bit longer to read it, and then I forgot to review it, and then I kept forgetting to review it. So now I'm here reviewing it. So it's going up a little bit late. So we read this back in October. I finished it at the end of October, but I've had lots of books that I had to review from when I was sick and all the rest of it. So we're finally to Jane Eyre. So basically, I have a lot of notes about Jane Eyre. Now, this copy I have here is the only copy that I have, and it is a cloth bound one, and as I was saying, I got it in a box set off Amazon, and I think it was on special. It was some ridiculous amount off. I think it was like 70% off or 60% off or something like that, and I ended up picking this up, the 4 books, for like $80. Now, these here in Australia normally retail for about $28 to $36 depending where you shop. So I thought that was a bargain, so I grabbed all 4, and then Maria said that she was going to be reading them for the group reads for her Discord. So I'm like, I'm on it. So yeah, but anyway, I actually like the Bronte sisters more than I like Jane Austen. I think because while there is romance in these books, they're a little bit edgier, and there's a little bit more social commentary that seems a little bit more realistic to me. But that's just my personal opinion. Have I totally written off Jane Austen? No, I haven't. But at the moment, I'm really digging the vibe that the Bronte sisters are putting down. So, like, I've just started reading Wuthering Heights as well, and I'm loving that as well. So, yeah, so I've got a couple more to read from the Bronte sisters, and then I want to dive into their poetry and all that sort of stuff as well. I'm just really ticked off at myself for being such a pig-headed person when I was younger and refusing to read the classics because they were something that were forced on us at school. I know that a lot of people have been scarred by that, but the way that I'm reading them now with the immersive reading aspect of it, so doing the reading along with it being in audio as well, is really, really opening up a whole other world to me. So Hence why we're doing the deep dive next year on our Discord, on Dusty's Discord. And we're also looking at French literature as well with Maria. So we've got some complimentary text that we'll be reading and stuff like that. And obviously, as time goes on, we will add more and more to that list. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to deep dive and or even just to read the classics, you don't have to participate in the deep dive or anything like that. You can just see what else is going on to help you get a better understanding of what's happening. Come along on the journey. I know I can't speak for Maria, but I can speak for myself. I am a noob to classics, so come along for the journey with me and we can learn together and read some amazing books and whatnot. So I've got a couple of Russian books as well, and Russian authors, and she's got a list of French ones. So yeah, and I think I've got a French one on my deep dive as well. But anyway, we're reading different books in both of the Discords. So we're here to talk about Jane Eyre, and I've waffled on enough now. So this was written in 1847. It was the first time it was published, and the narrator, the publisher was Smith, Elder and Co. of Cornhill. The protagonist is Jane Eyre and the narrator is Jane Eyre. So she's telling her story essentially in the past tense as well, because she's reflecting back throughout. It's set in the early decades of the 19th century, and it's I've just got some notes here. So the setting for this novel is it's got a few different locations in it. We've got Lowood School, we've got Gateshead is where the book starts out. Then we've got Lowood School, then we've got Rochester's Manor, and then we've got house, which is called Thornfield, and then we've got the Rivers family home. And then we come back to Rochester's rural retreat. So we've got a few places that the book moves through. And that's pretty much in order that you go. The point of view is told from, as I said, from Jane's point of view. It's sort of in the past tense because she's reflecting back. And I don't know how you would describe this book. Like, it's not a romance book as such. It's definitely got gothic tones to it. It has a little bit of romance in it. But it's also got a little bit of, like, I feel like a little bit of a political vibe to it, I guess, because it's talking about the social constraints, and it's also got religion in it as well. So it's got a few different things that it's in it. So basically the story is of Jane Eyre, and it starts out when she's a young child. I think she's about 9 or 10 when we first meet Jane. And she is living at Gateshead with her relations, so her aunt. Her aunt and uncle were originally her caretakers. Her uncle has since died, and so Mrs. Reed, and it's spelt the same way that we spell our name. I am nothing like Mrs. Reed, just saying, because I'm Mrs. Reed. So yeah, I'm just saying I'm nothing like this character. So anyway, so she's living with her cousins, and she's living with her aunt because her uncle has passed away. Her cousins treat her very poorly. The male cousin, John, I think his name is. I'm terrible with remembering names. He is such a bully to her, and so mean and so mean-spirited, just like a down-and-out, not nice guy. And so basically, we start with the opening scene where Jane's reading in the parlour, and the cousins are there, and then Mrs. Reed won't let her engage with her cousins or anything like that. And then Mrs. Reed, from memory, she leaves the room, and then because she doesn't see what happens, and the cousin starts bullying her, and Jane just loses her proverbial shish and belts him with the book. And so subsequently he's wailing, because bullies are, not that tough anyway, that he's wailing away and all the rest of it. And just a huge ruckus happens in the parlour, and the aunt comes back in, Mrs. Reed comes back in, and along with some other people, and basically she blames Jane for everything. Typical sort of scenario where the orphan is always blamed for everything. They're just, they're the epitome of evil, so to speak. So anyway, she punishes her by locking her in the red room. The red room is where her uncle dies. Essentially, Jane flips out and loses it and thinks that she sees the ghost and gets quite hysterical and whatnot. And then so the one of the servants goes in and then basically, you know, says that she's lost it because she's in the red room. She's freaking out because she's seen her uncle's ghost and all this sort of stuff. So that's sort of the gothic vibe to it, I guess. And so basically the doctor comes, or the apothecary, I can never say that word properly, but you know what I'm saying. This tooth, I run into a lot of problems with pronouncing words. Anyway, she the servant comes in and puts her in the bed, and they're looking after her. And so this apothecary, anyway, you know who I'm talking about. The doctor comes in. We'll just change it to doctor. He comes in and he basically is looking over, and he suggests that she get sent away to school and stuff like that. And so basically, and Mrs. Reed agrees to that. And so then a little bit of a story ensues from that, where they meet the principal, or the owner of Lowood. Was it Lowood? Yeah, Lowood School, where Jane's going to go. She's ecstatic about it because she's going to be leaving this meanness and all that sort of stuff, and she ends up going there. But it turns out not to be such a great place. The owner of it is very negative towards Jane, very mean-spirited towards Jane, and as is the headmistress as well. It's not that great, but she does find some caring people at the school. One of the teachers is very caring towards her, and she also befriends a girl named Helen, who subsequently they become best mates. And Jane stays there for quite some time. There is a tuberculosis breakout, and is it tuberculosis? Yeah, TB. Yeah. So, yeah, that breaks out, and she is very worried, and that something's going to happen to her and her friends and all that sort of stuff. And there's a whole segment where there's a whole period of time that we spend at Lowood School, and we see how Jane develops into her womanhood and how she develops as a human and a female, and you know, and what she's striving for. Really, like, she's looking for love, or she really just wants to belong somewhere and be loved by someone. And so she's been there for quite some time. She finishes out her schooling, and then she does like 2 years of like teaching. And then after that 2 years of teaching, she feels that she's developed enough and has enough skill and experience now to venture out into the world and get away from Lowood School, because she just felt like she was like, I guess she would have felt like being stuck there, and she just wanted to experience the world. So she starts looking for a job, and she ends up applying for a job for a governess for a young girl. And she gets the job, and then she heads off to Rochester's manor, which is Thornfield, I think I said it was. She ends up being the governess, and to the young girl, who is a French young lass. And she is not the daughter of Rochester. She is the ward of Rochester. He knew her mother in France, and he brought Adele, I think her name is. Adele, yes. So Adele is the one that she is the governess towards. And at this point in time, Jane hasn't had a lot to do with a lot of different people, and she hasn't had a lot of caring people in her life, although she did have Bessie when she was at Gateshead with her aunt. And basically she showed her a lot of compassion by singing to her and stuff like that. And then when she was at Lowood, she met the teacher who was quite compassionate towards her, and her best friend who was quite loving towards her. They had quite a loving, caring relationship as well. So now that she's got to Thornfield, she's looking after this girl, and she's really fitting in, and she's, you know, going with the flow and all the rest of it. And there's a little bit of flirting. Really? Can't you go and sit in the tree? There's a lot of like toing and froing between Rochester and Jane, and she's developing feelings, and he's definitely got feelings for her, and she's developing feelings until it eventuates into a marriage proposal. And so there's a whole thing happening around there. Like, Jane saves him from a fire, and that's how their relationship develops a lot further from that moment. But there's something weird going on in the house, and you don't quite know what's going on. And as the story plays out, you soon learn that there is something definitely happening in the house. I don't want to say, because if you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil it for you. But subsequently, Rochester proposes to Jane, and she accepts, and they're at the church, and something goes down, and she ends up leaving and not end up marrying him at all. And she ends up leaving, and you know, she's penniless, she's hungry, she's, you know, homeless. So she didn't make a very smart decision in some aspects by just fleeing in the middle of the night. But anyway, nonetheless, she fled, and basically she ends up at a house with I believe their last names are Oliver. Did I write that down? No, I didn't. I think their last name's Oliver. But anyway, she ends up living at a place called Marsh End and Moore House. And she is living with 3 siblings. There's St. John, which is pronounced St. John, and Diana and Mary, who are sisters. And so she ends up at their house, and she ends up befriending them and living with them, and then ends up teaching at another school. And basically, yeah, I had a real issue with St. John. He was putting the hard word on Jane, and he was being a little bit of a thug, in my opinion. He wasn't being violent towards her or whatnot, but he just, you know, no means no, chappies. Okay? When someone says no, they don't want to marry you, or no, they don't want to sleep with you, it means no. It doesn't mean be belligerent and try to talk them into something they don't want to do. But yeah, so there was a bit of that happening with that. And you know, at the end of the day, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, they're cousins as well. So it's like, no means no, mate. If you know, you know. You just don't go there. Like, you can't go there. But yeah, and so that's the story, and there's a lot more to those plot points that are happening. There's a lot more story behind it. There's more in-depth things happening with her character as well. And some of the things that I really liked about Jane is the fact that she stuck to her principles, and like almost to the detriment of herself in some aspects. You know, like, damn the consequences. I am not doing that, and I don't like it, and I'm not going to do that. So there's quite a cast of characters in this book as well. So we've got Jane, which is the main. We've got St. John, we've got Edward Rochester, we've got Mrs. Reed, we've got Bessie, we've got Mr. Lloyd, we've got Georgiana, we've got Eliza, John Reed, we've got Helen, who was her best friend. Mr. Brocklehurst, he was the guy that owned Lowood. And then there's a whole other one. And of course, one of the other main characters is the young girl that she's the governess to. And then we've got Diana and Mary. Rivers is their last name, sorry. Rosamond Oliver is another character that it comes into later in the book. And she's got a bit of a thing for St. John, and but he doesn't see it that way. And yeah, so there's a whole thing that plays out there. And Rosamond is she's sort of like giving money to the school where Jane's teaching and whatnot. So they're all interconnected and all interwoven. And like, there's a couple of twists in it. And what Mrs. Reed does to her, like, Jane's life could have been so much easier, so much earlier on if go away, noisy bird. Could have been so much easier if Mrs. Reed wasn't so vindictive and so nasty and whatnot. But yeah, I just love Jane as a character. She is just, oh, her morals are brilliant. She just sticks to them, and she doesn't waver from them, as I said, to the detriment of herself. And I just love that she was portrayed as a strong woman, knowing her own mind. She doesn't really like the social construct of things either. Like, she's sort of at the precipice where she wants to push against the social construct of the time, where, you know, women are calm and don't have a mind, like essentially don't have a mind of their own, are looked after by their husbands and whatnot. And it does have a beautiful ending as well. I really love the ending and how it was all wrapped up. And yeah, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give it away. Like, it was just, I really, really, really enjoyed it. And as I said, I'm really cranky with myself for not diving into these books sooner, because I have definitely been missing out on some really good books. you know, like they are just singing to me, you know, like at this point in time. I'm just thoroughly enjoying them and diving into them. And I'm watching a lot of people that are also into classics as well, and their passion, I can see why they're so passionate about these books and everything. Just, yeah, I just love it. I just love it. You know, there's a couple of problematic areas, I guess, in the book as well, like that wouldn't fly of today, but were quite the norm of that time as well. So, like, you sort of, when you go into these books, you really do have to remember when these books were written. And like some of the things that are said or done in these books are a little bit problematic, but we've learned from them. We've moved on from them. We don't do those sort of things and whatnot. And there is a touch of mental illness in here, and how people treated people back then, which is deplorable to say the least. Like, it's just absolutely disgusting with how mental illness was dealt with back in the day. But at the end of the day, they didn't know what we know today, and didn't know of treatments and stuff like that. And it was very archaic, some of the treatments and whatnot. So there is a little bit of that in there. Would I read this again? Most definitely. I think that the more times you would read this, the more nuance of the story that you would get. There'd be so much more to it. I read this a little bit slower than I normally read my books. Normally I just read them fly through, but this one I took it a little bit slower. I took notes as I was going, wrote down general feelings, and then tried to correlate them into something that I could refer to here. And believe me, it's not working. But she stuck to her principles, which that's what I really liked about her, being a strong female character and basically sticking to her principles and not backing down and not giving in, and especially to St. John. I really didn't like what he did. I had some serious issues, and for that matter, I didn't really like some of the parts of Rochester either. He was a little bit problematic as well. But in saying that, I absolutely love the book. I've given it 4 stars, and I'm definitely going to read it again and delve a little bit deeper into the social constructs of the book as well. That is my review on Jane Austen and my thoughts for the first time reading it. Obviously, I will probably talk, not Jane Austen, sorry, Jane Eyre. That is my take on Jane Eyre, and as I said, I will probably read this again, and I'll probably talk more about this on the channel, because especially in the Friday Classics. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here or have yet to subscribe, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any future posts. And as always, keep turning those pages, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.